Only a few weeks ago, the world was changed when OpenAI released Sora, a text-to-video generator. Right now, it's still not being openly used, but the technology capabilities are there. From a simple text prompt, being able to generate realistic video. But now, it's being questioned where the data to train that model came from. Because ultimately, if artists' work was used without their consent, potentially this is illegal. Now, we will talk about the legal implications in a second, but first, I want to show you the clip of OpenAI's CTO deliberately dodging the answer of whether they train their data on YouTube videos and other videos.
What data was used to train Sora?
We used publicly available data and licensed data.
So, videos on YouTube?
Hang on. Wait. That is not a good face to make. Bro, that's we might have scraped a few million. Imagine you say, "Sir, do you have any stolen art in your art collection?" And the guy's like, "Well, not sure. All I know is whatever she says from here, I'm very skeptical of."
And licensed data.
So, videos on YouTube?
I'm actually not sure about that.
Okay.
What? Isn't that your job, to be sure about where the data's coming from?
Videos from Facebook, Instagram?
You know, if they were publicly available, publicly available to use, there might be the data, but I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not confident about it.
Now, from the get-go, when I saw this, I wondered to myself, is this person media trained? I mean, I think the right answer here is just I'm not going to answer that question. When you say, I don't know, it comes off very, self-incriminating. And I think it would have just been better to say, we're not going to talk about that. It's proprietary, some kind of boilerplate garbage like this. And you see her kind of figure that out as she goes.
What about Shutterstock? I know you guys have a deal with them.
I'm just not going to go into the details of the data that was used, but it was publicly available or licensed data.
Now, a lot of people rightfully called out how bad this looks for them. I think it's interesting. We're going to get into the legalities here of whether it's possible to do this, because a lot of AI people are really pushing. They want to be able to steal all your data and use it to train their models and then sell their models for a profit. They say that's all fine. Meanwhile, the artists want total protection over their works. They say, you can't take any of my stuff without paying me for it. Meanwhile, the websites that control artist data, like let's say YouTube, can YouTube just sell my content without my permission for a training model? The law is very unclear at this point, and anyone who's telling you that there's a yes or no answer to this right now is lying to you. And the evidence for this is that right now it's being played out in the courts. The New York Times is actually suing OpenAI and Microsoft over AI and its use of copyrighted work. They say millions of articles from the New York Times were used to train chatbots that now compete with it. In other words, they train on the data, and then now their competitor, usually in fair use, there's a provision where you can't be a replacement for the original work. You can't have stolen the market value of that work. And so all the people who are saying, hey, the work we're generating with these models is purely fair use, that's an argument against it, because actually you're competing with the thing that I'm making now that you stole my work. Or stole is, again, that's a legal term. Technically, the jury's still out on whether it's stealing, what is it. So I want to make that clear that we don't know yet whether what OpenAI is doing is legal. But I also want to make clear that they don't either. And that's their problem. Companies are recklessly building out models, not having any idea of whether what they're doing is legal, in order to gain the biggest possible market share so that when they get slapped on the wrist, they go, oh, my bad, I'll pay a few $1,000,000 and then walk on my way. But now I have all the users, right? I have all the users because my model's the best, because I didn't worry about licensing data. I also find it interesting that, for example, they are clearly using some licensed data. The interviewer at the Wall Street Journal mentions that they have a deal with Shutterstock, for example. So clearly, they're paying Shutterstock. They don't feel like they can steal all of Shutterstock's data. I think that's very interesting that OpenAI, when they're dealing with a website that probably is willing to sue them, they're not willing to just take it. They're going to pay for Shutterstock's data. But then YouTube, they're refusing to say. And I think one reason is if they say, yes, we trained on YouTube data or we trained on Facebook data, that also opens them up to some legal issues, because what is an unsettled case might become a legal case, right? YouTube, if they hear Sora's trained on their data, might say, hey, we want you to pay us. And then the YouTubers are also going to say, we also want you to pay us. So I think this is a huge problem that's coming up. I think it's going to increasingly become a problem. And some websites are dealing with it by actually paying for some of the trading data. For example, Google cuts a deal with Reddit for AI's training data. I think it's going to be a huge cash flow revenue for some websites to sell their data. But for these user-generated websites, I think we, as the people who generate the user content, have to ask ourselves, what's in it for us? You're taking our data. So, like, if you're a Redditor, you're providing the value. Reddit's getting the income. What are you getting out of this whole equation, right? I speak personally as a YouTuber. I'm concerned about this. If they go, YouTube sells my data, what do I get from that? Can it now make Voidzilla videos? I mean, obviously not, right? The Void is, you can't compete with the Void. Every day we sink further into the black abyss. But I'm worried for other YouTubers too. You know, some content is a little easier to reproduce than this massive production we have going on here. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about that. It is absolutely insane that the leader of a company, or the CTO of one of the biggest AI companies in the world, is responding like this, so afraid to answer very simple questions about where their data is coming from. When you're making faces like this, I'm not sure you're on the up and up, right? All from a company that's called OpenAI. I mean, irony is dead. I'm serious. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting to talk about. I will continue to monitor the AI situation, because I think anyone, honestly, I was going to say in the creative field, but not even in creative fields. Everyone who does some sort of like cognitive work, it's arguable whether this work is cognitive, but cognitive work should be concerned. And how this stuff ends up getting used, how your data can be stolen from you or reappropriated or trained into a model, will end up affecting you. And so you should care, because although I'm not as big as the Times, I'm not as big as, Reddit to bargain, on that level, I think if enough people are raising concerns about it, then there's a higher likelihood that we get a little bit fairer of a shake. Anyway, that's basically it. Not a fan of this CTO. I'm just going to say that right now. That shady. Very shady.